Hey there, and good morning. Sorry to be 2-3 minutes late, but a little warm today. I had to do a few adjustments to get the studio at the right temperature. This is an interesting week. We have a full series that started yesterday with supercharging your job search. Today is going to be really all about your resume and how to really make that work for you. So we're going to really share all the secrets that I use with my clients. If you want to do it yourself, this is exactly how to do it. We're going to show you how to do that. A number of interesting lectures still coming up. Here's the entire schedule. So you can check out the schedule here or on my selfrecruiter.com website. Just click under the calendar tab to have everything. Tomorrow will be my LinkedIn lecture. So hopefully we'll see you here tomorrow right at 11 a.m. A little slight adjustment to my schedule. But let's get going on today. When we think about resume, it's very frustrating because first off, this is us. It's personal. It's our history. We know we're perfect for some job we're sending in, actually probably several jobs we're sending in for. And then we hear crickets. Why do we hear crickets? Why do we hear nothing back when we know we're perfect? Well, the problem is you know that you're perfect, but your story really isn't told the right way on the resume. If you're going to fix resume issues that prevent you from getting seen or prevent you from getting offers for the right job, that requires two different fixes. We have to fix the story itself, which is going to be really confusing because, we're in a world today where no one will read. Therefore, that we're not talking about long form story written out. Oh, it's so wonderful, your prose here. No, we're talking about how you distill down to concept communications to fix your story and how the format along with that can help solve those problems. It really takes both of these things. So we have to also show that we're going to be effective working remotely because it's that type of world and we just don't know what's ahead. Forecast for the fall is not so good. So I think remote is here for a little bit longer than people think it may be. Now, if you've not worked remotely before, you're probably a little panicked. I haven't done that before. How's it going to be? You've probably done aspects of your job remotely. Maybe you've done some of these things here, or maybe you teach others in part of what you do for your work. Maybe you do webinars or conference calls or speak at conferences, all that type of thing. You may have to go back through each stage of your work life and highlight how you effectively did do parts of things that you've done remotely. It's going to require a paradigm shift. We're not simply talking about little new wallpaper, little fresh coat of paint. It's going to take more than that. It's going to take breaking it down to the studs and reimagining your story. Still has to be absolutely letter true, so don't mishear that. In case you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker. Resume and LinkedIn guru as well. So if you're suffering from your career brand not really being recognized at the same level that other people should recognize it, that's a storytelling problem. In virtually everybody I've worked with over the years, and I'll share my whole background here, it always comes down to the same thing. They've lived the journey so closely. They're so emotionally close to that story. They can't really see how to tell it in still truthful, but a different way. And that's what I do for my clients. So if you need help, don't hesitate to look over my Self-Recruiter website under the services tab. All my packages are there. And of course, if you need to chat before knowing which ones are right for you, send me a quick email. We'll set up a time to talk. A couple resources that will help you as well. My book, you can get it on my Self-Recruiter website over on Amazon as well. Help you with the entire roadmap for your job search, what to do with your resume, your LinkedIn, what even to do if you get the wrong offer, how to renegotiate that. All those nuggets of gold are in there. Probably a good time for me to share a little bit more about my background. That is 7 or 8 years in outside recruitment. That's a traditional headhunter on a desk, having to go into the competitor company, find the superstar, lure them out. Very, very similar to actually being a glorified dating guru. Maybe should have gone millionaire matchmaker. Who knows? But it's very, very similar. And so I want you to think about how in this world of challenge, how my advice is going to help you. So it's all that advice from being a recruiter. Now, I did 3 different disciplines on a desk. That 2 of them I did as national market. Simply means I never met anybody. Lots of placements, everything over the telephone. We have to learn to be effective without having to be in front of people. Then, of course, spent 3.5 years as the national trainer. This is a 100 office recruiting system. So every person that would want to become a recruiter would come into my 90-day program to really teach them how hiring works. Not how they think it works, but how it actually works behind the scenes. Of course, ended up being VP over all those offices before moving out on my own and really doing what I do now for the last 10, 12 years. And that is working directly with clients, helping them elevate their career story, their career brand. And of course, giving talks at places like the New York Public Library, New York State Department of Labor, Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, Harvard Business School Club of New York City, and many, many more. Well, today they're all here for you. A couple more resources over my LinkedIn. You can click on my articles, even one that will back up today, how your resume doesn't become resume roadkill, or how to supercharge your job search, a little bit more on yesterday's lecture, or even how to avoid the biggest mistake in job search. That's time mismanagement. Time is the only resource you actually have. Now, tomorrow will be my LinkedIn lecture at 11 a.m., but there's a special version of my LinkedIn lecture right on my homepage, selfrecruiter.com. Halfway down the page, it's free. You can see me large or the slides large. Really, you can see that one as a start and stop tutorial. Highly recommend using it, sharing it with your friends, posting it, doing likes, comments, all that other fun stuff. And by the way, thank you for joining me today, whether you're joining me on my YouTube channel or you're watching over on LinkedIn, or you may even be joining me. I have one other avenue that it's going out to, which is escape me for the moment. But check it all out, my YouTube itself as well. Now, Self Recruiter covers the entire lecture series. But of course, today we'll turn this lens toward resume. But for the lecture series, it's really about taking back control, as it will be today with taking back control of your story on the resume. But in most times, that's really about our use of LinkedIn. So tomorrow's lecture is a very important one for you to really have a holistic understanding of how to change your future in terms of career. Also means we have to keep one eye on that toughest competitor imaginable, those 4, 5, 6 people. Those people, we have to keep an eye on them. There's no way you can beat them without keeping an eye on them. And they may scare you, but you can beat them because they suffer from ego and arrogance. They think they're perfect. Don't know too many people that are perfect, even though we may strive for it. So I want to get you out of this whole rut of job search that really doesn't work for most people. And that is this clicking and sending, submitting and applying. First thing I would say in my in-person lectures is, saw a great job, don't apply for it. What? Don't apply for it. I know it's very startling. How do I get a job if I don't apply for it? Well, why don't you think about really doing something a very different way? I'm not saying to never apply for any job. Well, that's a little extreme. But for the most part, when you apply for something, that is going to the HR department. And the HR department only hires one type of individual, HR individuals. Everybody else, they simply facilitate and really screen out, weed out what they think is not the right candidate for some department that they really know nothing about. I want you to get right to the decision maker. I'm going to teach you tomorrow in the LinkedIn lecture exactly how to do that. That's part of breaking this rut. Well, today we're going to break this rut of telling our story a very old, unhappy way that doesn't really work. This wall of text that makes people drone out and fall asleep very, very quickly, looking for a better, exciting candidate. Well, however it was done in the past, however what we put together was holding us back in the past, we're going to have to get over that and let go of our emotional connection. And you're going to have to see yourself in a new way. You're going to have to break the unusual customer expected cycle, and you're going to have to move into more unusual, unconventional, unexpected places. That's going to allow the light bulbs to connect and those moments of clarity to come to the surface. Now, your job on a resume, as it is anytime you present yourself for a career, is to be persuasive. You're not standing there jiggling your cup, although mine is not empty, but jiggling your cup with a coin in it, looking for some attention, or jiggling my ice cubes. What you're looking for is this opportunity to persuade them, to share with them why you're the very, very best. Now, for most of us, that goes directly against something else that we fight all the time. And that is we're consumed with modesty and humility. And by the way, I love these two traits. They're really wonderful for all aspects of our life, but not job search and not career. These two places, it works directly against you. So, I've certainly said many times in the various lectures I've given that no matter what you see here today, I'm actually shy and introverted, and yet I can do what you see here You're going to have to give yourself permission to own what you bring to the table and to almost be enamored by what you bring to the table, realizing what a value it is for others. It's not that you allow your own head to become inflated. It's because you get excited the value you bring that you know will help others. That's a slight shift that moves it into dating territory. Well, let's handle this question on screen right now. Why does your resume still matter? I mean, come on, aren't we in a digital world? Isn't everything digital today, including my resume? Well, very likely so, but I bet you have a few paper copies of it as well. Why the resume still matters, even though LinkedIn clearly is incredibly important to becoming employed or to looking for that next rung up on your career. The resume still matters because it tends to be the first point of awareness about you. Not always. Sometimes it's LinkedIn. Sometimes it's an in-person meeting. Who knows? But for the most part, statistically, it's the resume. The resume catches their attention. That's why it still matters. That's why you can't leave it in this format from decades ago that no longer works. I see so many resumes in all the different standard formats I've seen over the years. Every one of them just doesn't work. We're going to show you why today. Now, resume is also part of how you begin to take control of the discussion about you. What will others say when you're not there about your work product, your contribution, the value that they see you? Now, if we're really going to tackle this challenge, we're going to have to understand the numbers. And the numbers are a little more grim than people really think. So if you've been sitting back going, oh, I keep sending my resume off. I keep sending it off. I'm perfect for these jobs. I never hear anything back. Well, as soon as you understand the numbers, you'll understand why. So by the actual numbers, if this is any kind of a decent job you're going after, that's 1,000 to 2,000 resumes being sent in for that job. Now, I hope you didn't mishear me. That is not 1,000 to 2,000 qualified individuals. Maybe 90, 95% of these are not right for this job. Well, how did they get here? Interesting story. Well, they all saw this really exciting job and they thought, oh, they must have a job for me right around that one. If they see me and I'm so dazzling, they'll think of me for the job right around it. And that ends up with the entire pipe full of resumes clogged like a sewer pipe. Most of it is nonsense that needs to be flushed away. But 1,000, 2,000 resumes, there's probably 50 resumes in there I should see. By the way, if you're one of the 50 they should see, hey, kudos to you. but sorry for you as well, because you're mixed into this 1,000 to 2,000. It's like snow blindness or resume blindness. After a few dozen, few hundreds, like, I can't tell anybody apart. Why are they all special? But you still don't really have a grasp on the numbers. We're in this world where no one wants to read. So it's not just 1,000 resumes, it's 1,000 emails and that message, 1,000 cover letters and that message. So it's 3,000 items, but we're still not there. I don't know who could do that and do all of their own work. This is only one task they have assigned. But if they're a recruiter, and that's whether it's an internal recruiter, an external recruiter, doesn't really matter. If they've got that recruiter title, they tend to work on 10 open jobs at the same time. That's the method. That's the way it works. So it's 10,000 emails, 10,000 resumes, 10,000 cover letters. Who could read all of this? No one. Which is why we fall down that slippery slope or slide right down that slippery slope right into the trap of the applicant tracking system. The machine will pull me out. Great. The machine will pull you out and put you right in front of the person not qualified to evaluate you, the HR person. Now, don't mishear that. There's some great HR people, and they're qualified to review HR people. They're not qualified to review the other people in many cases. They don't have that specific background. And they end up working with this ridiculous laundry list that I call I don't call it that, but it's called the job description. I have a different phrase for it called the list of the irrelevance. That's a new word with a T and an S on it. Almost everything on that list is irrelevant. Oh yeah, tangentially connected. I get it. But that's not a picture of the day-to-day of this job. And so by the time they fill in those check boxes, they're not going to end up with the right person. You have mere seconds to win them over, to convince them of you being the right person. Now, the trap most fall in is what you see on screen here. I get it. I'll be cookie cutter perfect. I'll be perfect, interchangeable, perfect. Good for you. Now, you're I'll take number 3. Number 3, I'm going to pay you less too. No, you don't want less? Okay, I'll take number 2. I'll take number 5. Doesn't matter. you're perfect and interchangeable. You see what happens when you're perfect and interchangeable. That gets you paid less, because if you don't want less, I'll take the one to the left, take the one to the right. It doesn't really matter. You have to accomplish in your storytelling somehow being perfect, but also being exceptional, different, special. And that takes more work in storytelling, it takes more thought process. Very likely, you're going to need multiple iterations of your resume to get to the right version. A lot of times people will come to my lectures, whether they're online or in person, and they'll sit and think that, oh, I'll go home, I'll spend 2 hours, I'll have my brand new resume. I'm like, wait a minute. You may go home, spend 2 hours and have the initial version of your brand new resume, but it may take 4, 5, 6 iterations to get to the right version. You stop too early, you're going to get a resume that really doesn't work or doesn't open the doors that you thought it would open. Small changes change perception and really change everything. So you can't stop the work too early. Let's go to a troubling word. What's your story? Now, story tends to have a connotation of something being made up or not real. That's not what I mean. I simply mean I can tell you a story in the most dull, factual, truthful way, or I can tell you the same story that is truthful, and yet it's done in an interesting way, an engaging way, pulls people to the edge of their seat. They can't wait to hear the next thing I might say. You're going to have to go back and really do a deep dive interview. Now, if you're going to do this for yourself, if you don't want to work directly with me, this is what I do with my clients. I schedule an inventory session, which is really called the interview session, but it's a deep dive inventory on every single piece of the background. Why did you choose that school? What were you doing while you were in school? What was the program like? What was the first thing that happened to you afterward? We're looking under every single rock, under the bed, in the closet. We're looking everywhere for all the various pieces of story that somehow slipped away, went away over time because you dismissed them as nothing, because you were, oh, that's nothing. Oh, that's so long ago. I was working a couple years back, reinventing a person that's a chief communication officer for 2 very large brands, and late 40s at the time. Sent me all their earlier materials. We're going through everything. Nowhere on their earlier materials was their first internship. What, from decades ago? It's not anywhere. But of course, in conversation, it slipped out. And then, of course, when I created the initial resume, it's like, oh, I could tell they liked it, but there was a little bit of a but coming. I'm listening. I'm like, oh, they like it, but there's a but coming. And I know their eyes are going right down the page, right over to the right next to education. That extra detail I put in the internship. Oh, yeah, I was listening. It wasn't just the internship. Oh, it's like I put a giant turd on their resume. I had the gall to put detail. This, that, the other thing, airport pickups. Who are you picking up at the airport? People that are on television. Let me put this in perspective. You're a kid just getting out of school. And by the way, you came out of a top journalism school in the country. First thing you land is ABC Television World News Tonight as an intern. I'm not sure why that would ever come off your resume. And who are you picking up at the airport? The people that are on television. Need a lot of handling. And you're this kid that has the nuance and finesse, speaks to exactly why you'd rise to be chief communication officer. I love it. I love it. Don't touch it. From giant turd to the sweetest drop of perfume, that quickly, with perspective. We're so close. This is what most people can't do for themselves. So you need to go back and capture all of this. Now, when I do this with my clients, I end up with probably 8 or 9 pages of notes, besides all the background material. And it's all about readjusting the story in your head, still in a very, very truthful way. Maybe the secret might be to grab a highlighter and be very, very stingy, negotiate every time. And nothing gets a highlight unless it's exceptional, absolutely off the charts exceptional, rises to the top. Okay, whatever's highlighted probably represents the core items that must appear on that resume. Everything else has to be negotiable. Adding more detail dilutes the rest of the story. You must find that right balance to let those ruby, diamond, emerald drops of perfumes sparkle, shine, or give off their scent, whatever they're going to do. So yes, be capable and qualified. Now, I don't want you to mishear that, but I'm not going to hire anybody because they're capable and qualified. Again, wouldn't hire a soul I didn't believe to be capable and qualified, but that's not the criteria. That's a baseline foundation. I wouldn't waste time speaking to anybody I didn't believe was capable or qualified. What I want to know is, why are you interesting? What makes you tick? What drives you? in addition to being capable and qualified. There's only two reasons you're ever going to be hired. Number one reason, this is if you're capable and qualified. Number one reason above all other things is chemistry. Why? Because, chemistry is the only thing I can't really teach. I already have a team that's in place other than this missing spot that I need to fill. I need to find someone capable, qualified, brings the special sauce, but also has to be a chemistry fit with my team. I can't teach that chemistry. So that why are you interested in what makes you tick? Helps them on the chemistry piece. Number two reason is confidence in you and what you may bring to the table. So don't forget to tell the interesting parts of your story that maybe sometimes you leave off, because maybe those interesting bits don't even have to do with your normal work life, but you're going to have to find a way to integrate them. And just need to grab a quick tissue. Thank you so much. So you take all these notes about yourself and you have to filter everything that didn't get a highlight through this brand equation. What rises to the level of representing my brand? All these different things can be part of a brand, but really it's anything that can separate you from others. What is it going to be for you? So if you get confused over what items to use, this is another way to think about it. Filter everything through this lens. And I talk about this lens in the entire series, but certainly a lot tomorrow in the LinkedIn lecture. And that is this one singular, simple question that will help bring everything into focus. Why is it going to be the very best business decision I make today if I choose to hire you or work with you or engage you or whatever it might be? That will help you understand what is sellable. Now, I get hit in the head with a brick, just like that. I get hit in the head with a brick right after one of my lectures at the New York Public Library. This was a few years ago, before pandemic. And right after the lecture, of course, they all rush the podium to get in line to ask questions of their own. And the person's holding the resume very tight, and they I've been told all I can expect is more of this. And I'm like, what is it? What is it? I think you already get the sense from watching me that, yeah, I'm very passionate. I have a lot of adrenaline flowing. After 90 minutes of giving a lecture in front of an audience, you can imagine I'm riled up. And of course, I'm nicely caffeinated. And right away, this resume, I'm about to fall asleep. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to nod off. This is so boring. I better ask her a question. What would you like to do? I'd like to be in events. I'm like, oh, good energy. Have you ever been in events? Ouch. Let's just bring this a little larger here. And let's not forget, I am me with my background. If I can't see this person is an events coordinator, no one can see it. All they can see is law firm, law firm, law firm. Now there's law firm and there's law firm. Oh my gosh, these are law firms. Money. Okay. All right. I get that part. But this person let the law firm take the entire story. So even if I zoom in, oh yeah, I see it says events coordinator, but I'm so droned out by the law firm, and more law firm below this. I'm like, oh, more law firm for you. This is the same exact background. This is the same background with the minutia of the story that's just wastewater that dilutes the story removed. Why are you talking about that, all that other stuff if you're an events specialist? Why don't you talk about that? Why don't you talk about the fact you did photo shoots or events at the Heller Gallery, at Guggenheim, at Lincoln Center, New York Public Library, at the Met? Oh my gosh, Morgan Library and Museum. Why don't you tell that story and you'd be probably back to work tomorrow in events, simply because people would be dazzled. Those are all A+ venues. We just don't know how to tell our story. We fall in this trap of it. Oh, I'm supposed to tell it this way. You don't have to go through this transformation, dramatic change, this metamorphosis. We got to shed this skin. We're a product. And we have to be staged and marketed to create engagement, but it's a lot closer to that type of engagement. Again, small little changes change perception on everything. Resume is a big piece of your personal branding, as are all those other items that we talked about. So you're going to have to think about all these things that separate you out and think about how to use them. Now, before I showcase exactly how to fix your resume, I pulled a few resumes off the internet. I'm just going to throw a few darts at them to tell you what's wrong with them. Once you understand what's wrong with most of these formats that you've very likely seen before, you'll change your resume dramatically. Let me just make this a little bit larger. Much easier for you to see. And so first one here, Kelly. Now, kudos to Kelly on his or her name. Big, bold. I mean, I get the brand. I can't miss it. I'm not sure shades of yellow was the right choice because, it's hard to read on screen. When I print it out, it's shades of gray. That undermines your brand. I'm not sure really that's the right thing. And that's the last positive thing I have to say about this resume. What this resume suffers from is what most suffer from: a complete failure to consider information architecture. Think of any building. A building just can't go up. A building needs an architect so all those systems can all work together. It all has to be thought out in advance. If they're only going to read 30% of your resume, no, 20%, no, 15% for you is all you're getting. Which 15, 20, 30% would you like them to read? That's up to you based on how you present the document. Here, they don't know where to start. Do I start down here? Then do I go over here? Am I supposed to read across? Architecture problem. Julia. Now, I did not write these comments down at the bottom, but let me just read this. It says, who said the name had to be at the top anyway? I'll say it for you. The name has to be at the top. These subtitle of my book is Changing the Rules. There are certain rules you cannot change. This is one of them. We're expecting name, employer title, employer title, employer title, education. It's a reverse half moon of an eye pattern. Yours is the only one that violates that, and you think it's going to work to your advantage? Not so. Also, the name being down in the middle of the page causes, again, an architectural problem. Am I supposed to begin to read below Julia's name and then go to the top? How's this really supposed to work? And actually, the only thing I can see when I look closely at Julia's resume is the reason I would not hire Julia, and that is the dates. Let's be clear. Dates are never a reason I hire you. Dates are only a reason I do not hire you. And while dates are expected, why would you then put the dates exactly where their eyes are going to look when it can only work against you? Get them as far away from where their eyes are supposed to be looking, and smaller font. And please don't put it in bold, and don't look here, even though it's there. Problem with Julia's resume that we need to fix that. Martin here. Now, I've seen this format so many times over the years. I don't know how many books this must be sitting in, but let's just start with the positive. Kudos to Martin on his brand. I certainly get it. He did a nice job. I cannot miss his brand. Yeah, all the contact information is pulled off because no point in showing that. But I'm not sure it makes sense to use 25% of the entire real estate simply to tell me your contact information. A lot of people stack it up like a layer cake, eating up valuable real estate when it should be a single line across the page, disappearing into the background, because I'm not going to hire you because you live at 123 any street. That's not the way it works. Again, architecture problem with these two columns. I don't know whether I'm supposed to go down the blue column and then go across, or am I supposed to do that as I go down? And if I just back up, all I can actually see is education, internship, and personal skills. All I can see is gimmickry and format, and none of the story comes to life. You've got seconds. None of these formats are going to work for you. Yeah, I'll be capable and qualified, but you can't leave out the interesting and what makes you tick, what drives you piece. So little more clarity. The resume is about catching or piquing interest, drawing the interest. LinkedIn is much more about closing the deal, dropping the shoe to the rest of the story, really showcasing you as the very, very best. This is all about influencing other people and winning them over before you have to do it verbally. Let them buy into your credibility first and have it work for you. Now, if we take a close look here, there's a lot of things here that don't work in terms of clarity. So it's clarity of your career path we're trying to provide, clarity of your story of contribution. Plus, we want to influence them of the value you've built across your entire career and get them to think about, wow, if I hire this, I get all of these transferable things. Go back to this one that is in events. Very clearly, if you're producing events, someone that has touched all these aspects of event planning, wow, that could elevate my event game very quickly, really increase engagement. But don't forget, it's really closer to that type of engagement. Well, let's get right into the secrets to building a really great resume. There's 5 steps to building a really great resume. Resume renovation, let's get started. We're going to come back to every one of these slides and give you details. So we're going quickly here at first. You are a product too. Resume, the new definition, coming right back to every one of them. Your resume's goals, the 3-second, wow, that's coming up. Understanding stacks of resumes first. Got a little out of my order there. The 3-second test for resumes. Let's go back to the beginning. You're a product too, whether we like it or not. And I know we don't really like that concept. We're this product that has to be marketed, packaged, has to have some positioning on the store shelf where it's never going to get purchased. So, how are we going to elevate our game? Would we like to be the store brand? It's always very nice price, by the way, on the store brand, but the label is a little bit off, the coloring's a little off, the taste is a little off. Oh, very good value, very good value. Or would you rather be the Coca-Cola, Folgers, Kellogg's, whatever that may be, that almost reaches off the shelf and slaps you? You've got to decide what your brand is. Resume, the new definition. Going to need a lot of ink to write this one down, and I certainly can come larger now. Sorry about that. Let's just switch it over here. Resume, the new definition. Are you ready for this? It's a simple sales sheet to create desire. Now, a few years back, I was up on stage with Reverend Jesse Jackson at Rainbow Push Wall Street Project for the very first year. I did it, I think, about 4 different years. And, I'm up there, and was one of 5 career coaches that was invited. And I got 11 minutes to present on my own. And then we did a Q&A roundtable. And I'm like, 11 minutes. What can I do in 11 minutes? Well, I can do an awful lot. In fact, what I did was I put together 40 slides that would just endlessly fly behind me while I gave a motivational talk, which was really right for the audience. And, right after I gave my talk, suddenly the next career coach gets up and to the microphone. She goes, so interesting. A resume that creates desire. Well, when I was reinventing myself, I think the book is still in print. What? That's your message? A story about reinventing yourself, and you think the book is still in print, and you think you have something to share? We all need to take a look at our product. We need to edit it. We need to understand what our brand is. This simple sales sheet that creates desire, it is this understanding of a resume of what it is. It's a sales tool. The person you're sending it to is not typically the person that's going to hire you. It's somebody else in the chain, or somebody else deciding in the chain. So in almost every case, they're going to take that resume, walk it down the hall, or walk it to a conference room, or walk it to somewhere, and they're going to try to sell you to that other person. But they are not you. So the more effective resume they have at positioning and selling, the better all of that process goes. So a resume that creates desire, makes them jump out of their chair within seconds. Get them in here, get them on the phone. I have to speak with them. That's the right resume. Now, if it's going to accomplish that kind of reaction, it's going to have some goals. Now, let's be clear. Its mission in life is to deliver the interview, the ones that you write for. But it's going to have some goals if we're going to get there. And that means a clear, clean, straightforward format. This is a format where the information itself almost jumps off the page, put together in such a way that the things that are most valuable can be easily absorbed. Think of that word, absorbed, not read, not digested, not concluded, absorbed. And of course, we have to clearly inform about educational background. Now, understanding stacks of resumes, I'm a big fan of not applying for the job, as you're going to hear all tomorrow in LinkedIn, how you reverse search LinkedIn, warm up 25 to 30 people that surround the job, go after 3, 4, 5 decision makers, introduce yourself, book a meeting, all tomorrow. But if you didn't listen to me and you did hit that darn submit button or apply button, if it was kindly labeled, what happens? Well, your resume is going to go off into space toward a black hole called the data warehouse. If it reaches the data warehouse, kiss that resume goodbye. Not likely to see that again, statistically. But in almost every case, it's going to stop in front of a person before it goes off to the data warehouse black hole. That's your chance. That's that 1,000 to 2,000 resumes stacking up where they get resume blindness, snow blindness very quickly. But there's your chance. And in a very short amount of time, they're going to sort you into one of 3 stacks very, very quickly based on their impression. There might be somebody in here. That's the good stack, by the way. Maybe. I have to come back and take another look. But they don't come back and take another look. They don't come back and take another look because these folks couldn't quite convey their value to me the first time. And I have this all new incoming river of resumes coming. Why would I go back to these folks again? And stack 2 becomes a dead end stack. And stack 3 literally is the no thanks stack dead end. Problem here is that even if you make stack 1, there's a problem because there's 50 resumes in stack 1. when we're starting with 1,000 to 2,000 resumes. And who could read 50 resumes, 50 cover letters, 50 emails? Not going to happen. So there's a secondary sorting process. They're going to grab your name. They're going to drop it in LinkedIn, not on LinkedIn. How comes that resume over to stack 2? On LinkedIn, but wait a minute. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. Placeholder. Out comes that resume over to stack 2. Now, third version, nobody likes. It's like, wait a minute, I have it. Wait a minute. It's identical to what's on the resume. Didn't understand the challenge. Out comes that resume over to stack 2. I'm generally looking for much more story on the resume, or I'm sorry, on the LinkedIn side. Let me get that correctly. Much more story on the LinkedIn side to help them close the deal. The resume piques their interest. The rest of the story needs to be over on the LinkedIn side. So the secret you may not like to this whole evaluation process with your resume is it's a very, very short time. It is literally 3 to 5 seconds. If you have your resume, you could pull out your resume here. We're gonna do a little exercise here in a second here. But your first goal is to get your resume into stack 1. If you don't get your resume into stack 1, it's not really going to work for you. In terms of length of resume, it's a 1-page resume unless it's 2, but I hope you see there. I'm unhappy with that. There's no time I'll tell a client they can have a 2-page resume or should have a 2-page resume. I'll tell them they can have one, but they'd be foolish to use it. It works directly against you. You just can't edit and tell your story. Every background fits on a single sheet of paper or you're telling too much story. Now, when I was talking about the length of resume, as I happened to be speaking at the Department of Labor, a couple of years back, I had some gentleman in back suddenly flipping out. Going, oh, come on. What if you're a CEO and you got a 30-year career? It's never going to fit. Okay, take a breath. I hear you. I don't think your reaction is because you don't really like my answer. I think your reaction is because you find yourself sitting at the Department of Labor going, well, how did I get here? How come no one can see my value? And not a surprise, this guy hires me, sends me all of his stuff. It is 6 pages of my eyes bleeding. I can't even get through it. Oh, yes, certain elevations in career or certain functions in career do like that CV format. But you know what a CV format is? A format not to get hired. Would you like to be hired? You need a single-page resume that works. And he's going to me, oh, you're never getting that down to a single page. Boom, like an exclamation point. When you have that type of background, you need almost no detail on the page. They just need to see the journey and go, oh, yes. And the conversation happens. We need to learn to edit. A lot more story, though, on the LinkedIn side. So on the single-page resume, what are we looking at? We're looking at your name and current, and which is your brand, of course, and current or last 3 employers and titles. Don't mishear that. That's for time, relevance, of skill. I'd like to see all the employers, but we're looking most closely at the current or last 3. Of course, educational background. Here's what I promised. I hope you have your resume handy. Don't look at your resume yet. When you do look at it, when I tell you, you're going to have to look at the resume as if, well, I don't know this person, which is you. And in the time I'll say start and stop. Just tell yourself what you're able to communicate to yourself about this person's value, which is you. Go ahead and take a look. And stop. And for those that weren't doing it and just watching, you saw me go 1001 all the way to 1005. It will never get longer than that. And your resume is in one of those stacks. Most people, when I'm doing in-person lecture, they'll look up like a deer in headlights going, oh, I can't tell you anything about this person. And it's me. And that's a real problem. Your resume is not working. So when you get to each new iteration of your resume, you put it side by side with the original. What works? What can I still work on? What's better? Let me pick it up and do the 3-second test. Back to the drawing board till I get through 3, 4, 5, 6 iterations to get to the right version. I object to objectives all of the time. Objectives are, I'd like to be this someday when I grow up in my career. No one really cares. They only care about themselves, their team, what they're going to benefit by hiring you. So these big collections of text up at the top of the page, we don't read any of it. All I can really see is the word profile and professional experience. The rest barely enters my mind. Here, a much more simplified version, I can see a high energy events planner and specialist, someone that it focuses in, or in this version, this is a different person, of course, campaign director or media and PR or public relations, community liaison. or accomplished sales professional. I have a story behind this one I'll show you shortly. Software, hardware, services. This top of the page is what I call a positioning title to really help refocus their thoughts. Rather than simply let them go employer title, employer title, employer title, education, what do I think? Why don't you use the positioning title to tell them exactly who you are, which has to be a dead bullseye for every job that you send to. So in case you didn't connect those dots too quickly, it's as simple as the positioning title changes every single time to be a dead bullseye for anything you're sending into. The rest of the resume actually never needs to change. And once you develop 2 or 3 of these, you realize how effective it is. But consistency also will help you. You saw a lot of inconsistent usage. Some was 2, some was a dash on the prior screen. So you want to think about how your simplification in formatting suddenly takes these walls of text that are not digestible, and clarity is allowed to come through. It just changes everything. This is the same exact story you see oscillating back and forth. And if these were 2 different candidates and only 1 spot available for interview, it is really clear who's going to get this interview, and it will not be the one that's the wall of text. So somehow you're going to have to go through this process. Now, this particular person was also getting mature, and that's usually when we get the scissors out. And so they had cut off Martha Stewart Living. You want to work in events, and you cut off Martha Stewart Living? I didn't really want to show the early 90s. I'm like, you're still going to have to walk through the door or into that Zoom call at some point. Early 90s, not for you. It's not too old. Leave that on there. House Beautiful magazine they cut off, where they'd done events at the Guggenheim, or European Travel and Life magazine, where they did event-related things. Yes, we don't need to see the earlier story that goes much further back, but let's not cut off the sell pieces. Promised you a little more story on this one. Interesting client. This was from a few years ago. They'd come to me, and at that point, they were 11, 12 years, I think, into their run, and they're like, I'm in contract office furniture, almost sounding like 1,000 desks type thing. It's been a fantastic run. I'm so done. But every time I send my resume out, they go, but we don't need a furniture salesperson. I'm like, well, quit talking about furniture. I'm like, what would you like to do? Software, hardware, services. I'm like, oh, that's a great field. I used to actually place it. Have you done it? Yes, actually, like 15 years ago. You can't even see it on my resume because my resume talks about the last 12 years incessantly. So, by the way, that may be somebody's challenge listening today. Your challenge may be to sell 15-year-old experience, and that's what you have to do. So what I did to solve this person's problem was almost the entire sheet was their story. I condensed it down to a super paragraph for the current role. That allowed me to expand the much older, earlier background, where I could then showcase the fact that they have software, hardware, services. And of course, we use this nice positioning title at the top to hijack the reader's brain. They pick this up and they go, accomplished sales professional, extensive contacts across industries, software, hardware, services, just what I'm looking for. And then they look down. Now, you may know Price Modern as a brand. I did not. Hayworth, I certainly know. Other than the words corporate office furnishings, not a word here. Not a word here about furniture. Achieved $50 million cumulative sales to date, ranked top 10 revenues every year since 2002, built a strong pipeline. This is everything that would make a sales manager jump out of their chair. It's also all the cheat sheet reasons why they should hire you, why they should interview you, why they should respond to you. Distill your resume down to the sell bits. Get rid of the rest that you do not still need credit for. Let go of it. Now, this is a bottom of a resume. I'd like to share a few different things here that you could benefit from. Yep, there's a whole resume above this, of course. But if you get mature enough, you may want to truncate your story a little bit at some point. So in this client's case, we decided to either start or stop the story in 1999. It was like, let's make 1999 that's when we do it. And it was Electronic Data Systems, EDS. If you're not familiar with them, EDS is one of those employers. Every industry has one of those employers. Finance, do we know who that is? It's Goldman Sachs. No matter what you think, it's Goldman Sachs. If that employer hires you, you're looked at as a little bit of an ability to walk on water. Must be amazing. I'm sure some of these stellar companies hire some stinkers, but the perception is everybody walks on water. So EDS, great place to kind of stop the story. You'll notice there's 3 prior employers now. These three prior employers, now 2 of the 3 prior employers also rise to that same stunning level. Kaiser Permanente and PwC PricewaterhouseCoopers, same stunning perception level. These 3 extra employers add 17 years to the background. Anybody need to be 17 years older the next time you go into the Zoom or go into an in-person meeting? Not most of us, not most of us. Some of us, not most of us. So the dates evaporate on prior. The way the brain works, this resume stops in 1999, even though intellectually we know it goes farther, but that's the way the brain works. And all within eyeshot, they see 3 crown jewels. They all hired you? How could I not interview you? Bottom of the resume, a little bit below that. I'm a big fan of splitting the bottom of the resume. Only way you can really be efficient in a single page resume. I wanted to point out here, there's 3 universities here, but only 2 are treated the same. Now, if this were your field, you're probably jumping out of your chair over at that PMP on the right, that PMP. Oh my gosh, put that over here. Put that at the top of the resume. Tattoo it to my forehead. I get it. I know that's the big sell piece. That's really the cherry on top of the dessert. They're really not going to miss it where it appropriately belongs. The 2 on the left, sorry about this word, these 2 on the left belong there because they're degrees. This one on the right is a PMP. It is not a degree. That does not trump the degrees. They have to be all where they need to be. Community involvement, absolutely. By the way, good works don't expire. There's no dates needed for that. But you need the character issue, the character checkbox. Oh my gosh, you did all this great work for these employers, but you also found time to give back. Says something about how you'll likely do your work. Think about how you can benefit from the right setup and the right storytelling. Again, I told you everything involves how to fix the story, but also we have to fix the format. So let me give you some sizing. First thing you need to do is go in and select a font. I recommend either Arial, Verdana, or Helvetica. This is all Arial. I strongly recommend it. You make everything 10 point. Are we sitting down? And then we're going down from 10 point. These are not for you, and you have the wrong concept of what creates readability or legibility. So, of course, first thing I'm going to do is violate my own rules, go to the top and make the name 18 point bold. Big, bold, can't miss it. Contact line just below that. We'll show you that coming up. It's not on this version. Positioning title, always the dead bullseye. That's the only thing that changes. The rest of it here, the brands, that's Good Samaritan Village, Salvation Army, United Way. Oh, those are all 10 point bold. I hope you've noticed the comma, location, and date are not only not bold, certainly not 10 point. In this iteration, they're 7 point. You can have lots of variety, but you consistently must be absolute. So you create a rule list. Every brand like this, every comma, location, date like this, every title like this. As long as you consistently apply it, suddenly it'll be like, it's so readable. I don't understand why. I'm like, I do. By the way, I also have a full pre-press background before I ever went into recruiting, which is why I'm so good on this piece of it. After the brand, you want 2 points of space, and I'm going to show you some slides coming up on how to add space either between characters or between lines. 2 points of space after the brand before title. Title line, I like a half a point below the brand, which means it's 9.5 in size. If you need that one special line up by Good Samaritan Village, I'll tell you why we need it in a moment. Don't need it on the other ones. If people know your brands, do not waste real estate on this line. If they do not know your brand, you likely want to insert a value description about the company so they get who you're working for. If you need one of those, it's 8 point with 2 points of space after it. Also want to point out your title, besides being 9.5, it's italicized to draw attention, not bolded. That way it can work in harmony. If they are both bold between title and employer, they're going to fight. One bold, which is the brand that has to carry the story, and one italicized, they work in harmony. After the brand, before bullets, 4 points of space. Screens on how to do it still coming up. Bullet point set. Scroll over each set. It now goes 8.5 in size. It's going to get a little tight, a little hard to read. While it's highlighted, I'm going to add space between the lines, and that space is going to be 1.75 points of space. Screens on how to do it still coming up. So I want you to think about all of this little tiny extra spacing work. This is what really makes it flow into the mind of the reader. removing all sentence structure, removing all that, you realize it still communicates what we have to communicate. By the way, that contact line, it's a single line. It's going to be your LinkedIn URL, city and state. Nope, I don't hire you because you live at 123 Annie Street. Get rid of that. Email address, and lastly is cell phone number. The two things we need to get to quickest are on the outside. Either you're already convinced, pick up the phone and call me. Not quite convinced, click on my LinkedIn and let's close the deal with my three-dimensional sales brochure. Adding space. Now, how do we add space after items? So between the lines, we simply go up under format down to paragraph. Of course, you're going to have to figure this out on all the various versions of Microsoft Word. That's Word's problem, not mine. And box is going to pop up, and a section of that box shows points after. And I simply put the 2 or 1.75 or 4 points of space, whatever I want, but it's always got to be consistent so they're all treated the same. Now, if I need to put a space between the characters, now your contact line is a great example of that. I recommend the contact line is 7 point. And when you go 7 point, it's going to get very hard to read. And people go, I can't read that. You can read it. We just need to spread it out. And you go up under font this time. And in the font box that pops up, you click advanced. And then from there, you can see you can either expand or contract, condense the character spacing. And literally, I'm just going to expand the character spacing 1, 2, or 3 points until it spreads across the page. And even at 7 point, you're going to realize it's perfectly readable with the spacing. Of course, you may need glasses just like I do. 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 iterations to get to the right version. Don't stop too early. That's the real work. Let's talk about work pedigree. Now, that usually triggers dog food and horses. And okay, we got the right one. So you may get a little bit of the 3 to 5 seconds of the resume look, but you're not really thinking it the same way I am. We're looking at the quality of these companies, right or wrong, titles and accomplishments, even though I said I wouldn't look at those accomplishments, and your educational background. Here's the proof. Here's literally the world's simplest resume. It doesn't get simpler than this. Todd Smith, Nestle USA, Director of Quality Assurance, Kraft Foods, Quality Assurance Manager, Coca-Cola Company, Quality Assurance Engineer, University of Florida, BS in Agriculture. If this is all that's on the resume, guarantee it's the simplest resume ever. Promote yourself. This job that you're after, or Todd's after, you're now the manager. You have to hire, you have 1 interview spot left, but you have 2 candidates. You have Todd here, who you can see, and somebody else is really just like Todd. They've got the same director of quality. They got the same quality manager. They got the same quality engineer. They went to University of Florida, BS in Agriculture. But, you know, they did those jobs for 3 food and beverage companies you've never heard of. There's like 1 million of those. Let's see. Does Todd get the interview of the other person? Todd, there's no question here. Todd gets this interview every single time. That's the power of brands. I hope you take that really to heart. I realize we all have to restore our cash flow and all those kinds of things and keep all the bills in life paid. But if you move to a company that the random person sitting next to you has never heard of, that does absolutely zero to add to your brand value. You have to move to better and better and better brands each time to elevate your brand. Value everywhere, but nowhere to be seen. You saw a resume with nothing on it. Where you're going to lose or win is what you put under those bullet points. So focus on the revenues or the efficiency or performance. That is the keys to the story. That's why I'd like to hire you and transfer those skills to me. Make sure they dazzle. Yes, some people might go, oh, that formatting's a little old and ugly or whatever. Well, they got 1,000, 2,000 resumes to look at, and they need to see mine just like that, and they need to pick up the phone and call me. Degrees of degrees. Have you received in hand your college degree? All that really matters here is the truth, the whole truth, and really nothing but the truth. You know, if you're 3 credits shy of your degree, guess what? You don't have a degree. So you don't put coursework toward a BS and whatever. That's a little too close to the baloney. You can put coursework toward whatever your field of study is and get the level of credit you deserve, but not 1 ounce more, or it's going to really hurt you. Designing your resume, you know, it's really about moving your brand forward, helping them visualize your career brand and all the contributions you're able to do. Of course, informing about educational background. A last word about Word. No special love for Microsoft. I'd have love for Microsoft if they wrote great software, but they really write some of the worst garbage on the planet. And Word is a perfect example. All of these years, they've spent an endless amount of time trying to figure out how to get you under a subscription model, which makes no sense for word processing. And yet they've never bothered to fix Microsoft Word. If you do all of this work to make your resume perfect, then you dare send a Word version to anyone. The preferences file that tells it what to look like stays as part of your computer. It arrives on my computer, may look very similar, could look like a completely different animal because it opens by my preferences file. When you're all done with all of this work, go to my YouTube channel and look for a Headless Horseman video. You will understand how to convert that over to a PDF so that it prints perfectly, looks perfect on screen every single time, no matter who created it, no matter what machine created it, no matter what machine is reading it. Wherever you are in the process of moving your brand forward with your resume, take your first step, learn how to take the next one, and repeat, repeat, repeat. But if you're suffering with your career brand that is just leaving you behind, and it should not be, that's a storytelling problem that you may not be able to solve. Consider working with me. All my services are over on my selfrecruiter.com website under the services tab. And if you need to chat before knowing which package is right for you, send me a quick email. We'll set up a time to talk. Brings us to the very end today. Don't forget, we have an entire series that just started yesterday. So I'll be back here tomorrow at 11 a.m. with my LinkedIn lecture. All the rest are up on my Self-Recruiter website, so you'll know when they're coming up. Also, there's a very special Ask Self-Recruiter one coming up. Here is a tiny, tiny bit of bonus content. Now, deep article over on my Self-Recruiter website under the Advice tab. That's my blog. Look for a article that will really talk you all the way through cover letters. It's called Knock Knock, How to Write a Cover Letter That Will Open Doors. There's also some resume samples there, some basics. This article will walk you through all the ways that really your cover letter can be that master sales document that positions and sells you. Remember, it has to be about them. This is about a date, just like it is for all outreach. So even though it's about you, it's about them before that. So think about how you're going to create this cover letter that allows you to be bold and confident. Remember, chemistry and confidence, the two reasons. We have to take back any submissiveness, even if we are submissive or we rather than pick us. You've got to convince them that you're the very, very best one. And you've also got to overcome any objections that you think they may have. And you can do it right within your cover letter while you convince them that you are the very, very best individual for this thing. It'll help you a lot. Couple last words here. Opening and closing paragraph. It's probably 3 to 4 paragraphs, maybe 5 total on an effective cover letter. Opening and closing paragraphs, I can make much more of an emotional pitch. Then I need 2 or 3 paragraphs that really fill in the detail of what I'm claiming. That last wrap up is kind of serving yourself up on a silver platter as an asset that can be leveraged. And that's how you begin to create engagement, which is a lot closer to that type of engagement. By the way, extra special edition coming up next Thursday. Don't forget, I have lectures all this week, but extra special one coming up next Thursday, a week from Thursday. That's 11 a.m. Ask Self-Recruiter. That's a live stream Q&A. If you have questions that you'd like answered, send them in to ask@selfrecruiter.com, ask@selfrecruiter.com. All the best ones are always included. And I thank you guys for joining in today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.